They say, power is nothing without control. But what if I told you that true automotive mastery lies not just in brute force, but in the symphony of unchained revs, where steel, fire, and engineering precision unite to defy the very limits of physics? This is where legends are born, where pistons scream in harmony, and where the heart of machine beats faster than time itself. In a world obsessed with turbochargers and silent electric whirs, a rare breed of engines still dares to soar to stratospheric heights. Naturally aspirated, untamed, and engineered for the gods of speed. These are the highest revving marvels of the automotive world. From the spine-tingling wail of the Lexus LFA to the untouchable fury of the Czinger 21C. This is a tribute to machines that redefine what it means to chase a red line. Prepare yourself for an electrifying ride into the realm of mechanical perfection, where 9,000 RPM is merely a warm-up and 11,000 RPM is a symphony of sheer dominance. This is not just a list. This is the sound of raw, unfiltered passion. Welcome to the ultimate battleground of high-revving titans. Once you start flirting with 9,000 RPM, exhaust noises reach a new dimension, but none can quite match the sonorous shriek of the Lexus LFA. The harmonics of the engine were tuned by Yamaha, and the result is one of the best noises gearheads have ever heard. The 4.8-liter V10, capable of 552 horsepower, revs from 900 RPM to its red line of 9,000 RPM in just 0.6 seconds, making it one of the quickest revving engines on the planet. The revs rise and fall so quickly that Lexus had no choice but to install a digital rev counter. Its extra secret weapon is that the fuel cutoff arrives at 9,500 RPM. Other cars, like the Porsche 911 GT3 and GT3 RS, and the exquisite Ferrari 458 Italia and Speciale, also revved to 9,000, but we'd argue that the Lexus LFA's unit is the most melodic. The 458 is a close second, but Porsche is a distant third in this case. The first of the original Holy Trinity to hit this list is the 875 horsepower Porsche 918 Spyder, powered by a 4.6-liter naturally aspirated V8 engine, made into an electric motor on each front wheel. We don't really care for increased weight, but electrification improves low-end torque. What we're interested in is how it sounds. And with a red line of 9,150 RPM, the successor to the Carrera GT keeps the tradition of hair-raising hypercars alive. Top exit exhaust outlets producing a blue flame look cool, but they also place the sound of escaping gases closer to the cabin. With the ability to remove the roof, the Porsche 918 Spyder offers peak oral pleasure. The ability to do well over 200 miles per hour is just a bonus. The eponymous hypercar you see below arrived as the definitive Ferrari in 2013 as the brand's first full hybrid. Its 6.3-liter V12 is supported by an electric system that helps it generate a total of 950 horsepower and 664 pound-foot of peak torque. That made it Ferrari's most powerful road car at the time, and its top speed was claimed to be 218 miles per hour, still competitive today. As awesome as those figures are, the highlight is how it sounds at full tilt, with the red line arriving at a remarkable 9,250 RPM. However, The Ferrari LaFerrari simply can't match the red line of a tiny K car from Japan. Featuring a naturally aspirated engine with a capacity of just 657 cubic centimeters, the Suzuki Cappuccino is a surprise entry on the list if you're not a JDM fanatic. The tiny three-cylinder motor may seem meek, 64 horsepower and 63 pound-feet, but it's certainly fun to play with, as the revs only run out at 9,300 RPM. Peak power arrives at 6,500 RPM, and the red line is actually at 8,500 RPM, but the fuel cutout only intervenes 800 RPM later. And with a manual transmission requiring your input for every gear, chasing that high RPM hit is all the more entertaining. Upgrade the connecting rods, pistons, valve train, and a few other things, and you can turbocharge this engine or increase its rev limit with relative ease. There are several vehicles that we could focus on here, but we're choosing the Lamborghini Revuelto because its naturally aspirated 6.5-liter V12 combustion engine is a delight. It's joined by a trio of electric motors for a peak power of 1,001 horsepower, allowing the electrified Supercar to accelerate to 60 miles per hour in just 2.5 seconds. Hybridization is not all that is new, and the clunky transmissions fitted to every iteration of its predecessor and several special editions have been replaced by a new dual clutch system, which will make each gear shift far smoother. The V12 powers the rear wheels while the electric motors handle the front, creating an effective four-wheel drive system. Other cars capable of a 9,500 RPM peak include the Ferrari Daytona SP3, Mazda RX-8, and Prancing Horse's new Grand Tourer, the 12-cylindry. The last model features a reworked NA V12 that sounds incredible and produces an impressive 819 horsepower. Will it be the last unassisted V12 the brand ever produces? Hard to know for sure, but we get the feeling it's going to be a big seller regardless. Lamborghini has come a long way since the Gallardo, and now it's time for the Temerario to take over the mantle as the brand's entry-level supercar. Gone is a beloved, naturally aspirated V10, and in its place is a plug-in hybrid setup that combines a twin-turbo V8 with 3 electric motors to produce a combined 907 horsepower and 590 pound-feet of torque. No one said entry-level needed to be weak. The best part about the new setup is that the V8 is a clean sheet design in the Hot V configuration, so while it probably won't sound as good as a V10, we imagine we'll be able to forgive its transgression when it approaches the 10,000 RPM redline. With a 10,600 RPM redline, one might wonder how the motor in the Ariel Atom V8 was made to rev so high. Well, Ariel contacted Hartley to create the engine, and the outfit decided to combine 2 Suzuki Hayabusa motors with a common crankshaft. Motorcycle pistons carry less weight and are far more accustomed to high revving, and the end result is just as scary. 500 horsepower in what is essentially a race car with no bodywork and loads of scaffolding is definitely a good way to quicken your pulse, even if you keep both hands on the wheel as you operate the 6-speed sequential transmission from Sadov. It's a production sports car, but its dizzying rev limit, rear-wheel drive setup, and wild aerodynamics command more respect than most supercars. America is severely lacking in hypercars, and Czinger has aimed to fix that with the introduction of the patently insane 21C. This stealth bomber-inspired hypercar weighs under 3,000 pounds, sends power to all 4 wheels, and has a mid-mounted flat-plane crank twin-turbo V8 that displaces just 2.88 liters. The result? 1,250 to 1,350 horsepower, depending on your spec, a 1.9-second 0 to 62 miles per hour sprint, and a redline of an atmospheric 11,000 RPM. The company started production on the world-beating Hypercar last year, and we can't wait to see what it does when put up against its European competitors. The Aston Martin Valkyrie and the Gordon Murray T33 have two things in common. They both took advantage of Cosworth's engineering brilliance to produce spectacular V12, and both have engines that rev to 11,100 RPM. The British company has proved a point that understands a naturally aspirated internal combustion engine and how to make power from it better than almost any other manufacturer. And if you want one of the highest revving production cars ever made, Cosworth is the outfit to call. In the Valkyrie, the 6.5-liter V12 and an electric motor combine for peak power of 1,139 horsepower. The T33 does without electrification in its 3.9-liter V12 and only produces 656 horsepower, but it's a far more approachable vehicle. It also happens to be lighter, but any way you can experience 11,100 RPM should be embraced. The 3.9-liter V12 in the T50 is a variation of the one that the T33 uses, but in that car, it was revised for better low-down torque. Here, Cosworth aimed for the moon and ended up with the highest revving engine ever fitted to a production car. 12,100 RPM is the stuff of superbikes, not road cars, but anyone who gets to drive this three-seater car won't complain. The sound of this Halo model is glorious. Only 100 examples of the T50 will ever be produced, but if you want to experience the highest RPM engine in the world in the ideal setting, you'll want the T50S Niki Lauda, which uses an almost identical engine and revs just as high, but is restricted to track use. Whether it's in the race car or the road car, this V12 will go down as the finest engine ever made. Its extraordinary redline is spine-tinglingly entertaining, but spare a thought for the notion that naturally aspirated combustion may have reached its production car peak. Just missing out on this list is the Audi R8 with its 8,700 RPM V10 roar, but the C8 Chevrolet Corvette Z06 isn't far behind at 8,600 RPM. The Lamborghini Huracan STO tops out at 8,500 RPM, as do several other Huracan models, including the more recent Technica. The lightweight STO is simply more special because of its racing influence. Other cars that manage 8,500 RPM are the Koenigsegg CC850, Gemera, and the McLaren 750S, and the Billions V16, which revs to 9,000 RPM rounds like a monster. There had to be a Honda with a feature about high-revving engines. So here you go. The Honda Beat, like the Suzuki Cappuccino, can rev to 9,000 plus, but has an official redline of 8,500 RPM. The upcoming McLaren W1 and Ferrari F80 are different solutions to the same supercar problem, yet they both manage an impressive 9,200 RPM redline. The track-only McLaren Solus GT, with bespoke 5.2-liter V10, revs north of 10,000 RPM, and we give a tip of the hat to the De Tomaso P900. If the track-only Hypercar reaches production as intended, it will target a redline of 12,300 RPM from its 6.2-liter V12. And there you have it. The guardians of the red line, the machines that refuse to be silenced, the symphonic marvels of combustion that have etched their names in the halls of automotive immortality. These engines are more than just mechanical wonders. They are proof that emotion, soul, and sound can be engineered into metal and motion. But as the future leans towards silent efficiency, these high-revving warriors stand as the last echoes of a golden era. An era where speed wasn't just measured in numbers, but in the visceral thrill of a roaring crescendo. The world may change, but the legends of these machines will never fade. So, to the engineers who dare to push the limits, to the dreamers who refuse to settle for mediocrity, and to every rev-hungry soul that lives for the scream of an engine at full tilt, this one's for you. Stay driven, stay passionate, and never, ever lift off the throttle.